Hi, I'm Hot Wheels Jordan Owen, driver of the Craft Automotive Repair Services 68 Chevrolet Cobalt. I race in Sunset Speedway's Bone Stock Division, and you're watching ONTrack Weekly.
How's it going, everybody?
If you can hear me, say yes, say no. How about now? Unfortunately, as well, GeForce TV, it doesn't appear our GeForce Facebook page has our episode up today. It's just YouTube. So we'll have to see whether or not that can get fixed. Ben Hodgson here from Peterborough Speedway following the Autumn Colors Classic, where we got to announce what was, I think, the amazing, in my opinion at least, mini stock 67 lapper, Electric City 167. We got Oscar Hot Rods, Outlaw Midgets, OMRS, the mods, Super Stocks, a whole bunch of great classes. Ben, did you get any sleep following this weekend?
Man, the answer to that question is absolutely not. I didn't sleep during the weekend. I didn't sleep after it. That is for sure, especially on the Friday night before that Bandelero race 2 on Saturday. I could not stop thinking about what was about to happen, but everything went smoothly this weekend. It was probably one of the best shows I've ever been a part of at Peterborough Speedway, so it was incredible.
You've been there for the last couple of years, obviously, growing up at the racetrack. How did this year compete? I mean, I felt like I was there just for Sunday, but we talked about it before when we were at the track. The amount of cars that showed up. We have 40 mini stocks show up. I want to say we had 32 bone stocks, over 25 legends. I think we had over 20 outlaw midgets, over 24 hot rods. I mean, the smallest count that we thought was only going to be like 14 late models turned into 18. Thank you, Sean McGlynn. Really a great, and the turnout for fans, there was not a place to sit. I don't know, man. It looked really, really great.
It was, like we mentioned before, seeing the car counts that we got this weekend was really refreshing. I think it's what the racing community needed to see, as a lot of tracks were getting the car counts, maybe not getting the fans, and then others were getting the fans, not the car counts. We got both really well, especially on Sunday, but really refreshing as someone who's working and trying to build racing in Ontario. And I think everybody there, even GeForce, we're really happy to see the turnout and super nice to see heading into 2025 season.
And you know what? This is what's great about it, is that we really didn't know if we were going to race yesterday. The weather was so unpredictable the entire week. And really, I believe not one moment really was interrupted by any sort of rain. I'm trying to think if we got any sort of, maybe a little pop-up shower on Saturday, was it, or Friday night?
Friday night we had a passing shower. It was a pretty big rain cloud, perfectly split our racetrack in half. We went right down the middle of it. We did catch a kind of clip of it. for the remainder of the night, I think it was for 4 races, we got the drivers to do some hot laps like the Oscar mods usually do, just for a thumbs up, thumbs down to make sure the field was good. But hot rods were a little undecisive throughout the night. We were getting like 50-50 yes and no's, but show was good. The rain stopped pretty quickly. We got kept the heat in the track rather, and racing continued as always.
And you know what turned out to be, despite some clouds and a little bit of chilly conditions, it was a beautiful day yesterday for the racing. I thought what we had was a remarkable show. The Electric City 167, we started off with the Pro Late models, 18 cars out there. Some stories to take away from the 167. Obviously, Andrew Gressel taking that big win. But he wasn't the dominant car throughout the day, Ben. It really was between 2 Peterborough regulars that ran up front most of the day.
Yeah, we always talk about that. We think we have the 2 best late model drivers in Ontario, and they continue to kind of prove that with the ACC running this season. Obviously, Dan McCaddy blitzed the fields in the APC earlier in the 2024 year. Wasn't even close. Looked like it was going to be the same turnout this year. It was Dan McCaddy and Kimball, your pole sitter, up front majority of the race, probably for 50% of it. McCaddy getting a little impatient after the competition caution on, I believe it was lap 85 to 90. Tried to force it 3 wide down the front stretch with a lap car, got into Zardo, putting him at the back of the pack. Kimball and him made contact, and then obviously Kimball on one of the restarts shuffled onto the outside lane, could not get down, involved in the accident, was very vocal in his interview about how Dan McCaddy raced him.
If that's going to be a viral moment, I'm pretty sure it. He had some not some very nice words for Dan McCaddy, and they, like I said, they raced all season long at Peterborough Speedway in the late model division, and for the most part the race was pretty clean. We did have a couple of incidents. Steve Powell absolutely pounded that outside wall, and it sucks because Steve wasn't. He wasn't trying to get into anybody's way. I think he said something happened to the car, but he's also a regular out of Peterborough. And for yourself, seeing all those regular names out there, but one that really was awesome to see once again was Brant Graham taking himself back on the track. We didn't get to see much of Brant this year. He was running more dirt stuff in the States, but nice to see him out there as a part of that field. And I honestly love the 167. You get a little bit of a break to kind of let everybody cool off, and it did. It heated up real quick. We mentioned it a little bit earlier that what we don't like seeing is wrecked up cars, but fiery temperatures for the drivers. We just added a little bit of an excitement there, and you know what? It just adds a little more excitement heading into next year. Not just the fact that we got the late models, Ben, but I already have a comment here talking about how a cool experience for you on Saturday, getting to commentate live inside the car. And you know what? That was my highlight as well from Saturday. I thought, and you know what? When we talked and you had this idea, I remember you saying that you just don't know how this is going to work. Like, how are we going to get this to actually end up working? And you know what? It went off really without a hitch, and a little bit of an issue for yourself. So let's talk about your experience behind the car. First off, Bandelero's new to the track this year.
Yeah, I was. Jeff has obviously a lot of the bandos at the track.
Jeff Drimmy.
Yeah.
Jeff Drimmy. Okay.
Yeah, and JDC Motorsports. They reached out to me and said, hey, we have this crazy idea. We want to throw you in a bando. My mom was very against it, not very happy with me accepting that text message. My dad was all for it, so she got outvoted 2-1. So we went for testing the first time around. Felt pretty comfortable in it for my first ever time. I think we ran a 17.8 was my fastest lap time, and I said, you know what, this is not who I am. I'm not a racer, obviously, so I had to bring announcing into it somehow, and I reached out to you actually and said, hey, what camera equipment, what do we need? And then you took me to Spencer, who is just a wizard with technology. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he really is.
My idea was literally just to announce with the camera in the car and edit and post it later. And he was like, no, man, we're doing this live. And I was like, whoa, if you can do it, go for it. But I thought he was crazy until he brought all the camera equipment. I think it was 2 weeks before the colors. And when we realized it could work, it was a dream come true, really. And then it was the practice on ACC. It was our final testing. Camera worked great, microphone worked, and it was off to the races there. No pun intended.
Now in the actual race, we had, it was a tough. Let's be honest here, it was a tough race for the Bandos. We had a couple mechanical issues for Lucas Finnegan for the '08 of Ava Boundy, and unfortunately, right in front of you, Lila Sikma, who had gotten out to a really big lead 5 laps in, and at first the question mark that you had was like, did she hit the wall? Because she was slow right in front of you, and then you happened to turn left and to avoid, and something happened to the right front, or left front, was it?
I think it was left front. But yeah, the Bandos, we had a good, it was actually an iffy start for us during practice. Lila spun out a couple times, Chase did as well. Cuthbertson spun out. Just the cars were really loose during practice, not a lot of grip. When we finally went out for a race after the midget incident, which we'll go over later,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, it was actually pretty sticky for the Bandos. It wasn't as slick in 1 and 2 that I intended. But during the race, right off the bat, Finnegan found issues. He was starting on the pole. He pulled his car off very early. He was a little frustrated with that. But Lila pulled out to an early lead. Me and Chase were kind of chasing her down, and I think she had clutch issues was what took her out of the race. But when I came out of turn 4, I carried more speed than Chase, so I looked to the outside, not knowing Lila was slowing down there. We were probably going 10 miles an hour quicker than she was. Cranked the wheel left just to spin, and then I posted on my story the divot that took my wheel, but it just ripped it right out of the car. So funny interview though with Clinton right after, which actually could have made it a little better as Dave took the wheel right out of the car. But the fans were great. They were really loud. Heard them immediately as he got out of the car. But an unreal experience, and I can't wait to see what we can do with that in the future.
I definitely think that there's something that we can do there in the future. I think that that's something that, as Susie points out here, she says different experience for fans than drivers. Hearing the reactions of it being live was cool, and it was pure excitement that was coming out of your voice every second, and that for myself, it was just one of the things that is really good about having yourself as an announcer as well, is the excitement that we have behind the booth, and that is what we're all about, right? We want to promote and show how fun this sport really is. And unfortunately, there were some moments, like you had mentioned, that were a little bit tougher to have this weekend. There were some pretty serious accidents in the outlaw midget division, and actually yesterday in the Superstock division. So we want to send our best wishes out to Johnny Morrison and the Grant. I believe it was Nathan Grant, perhaps, was the name of the young fellow there, and Rob Costigan, all who had incidents on track. And I know that there's been some debate over the class in the club and the outlaw midgets on how safe the cars are. And you know what? I think it's completely within people's abilities to question, and people can explain what they think is safe about the car and what isn't. But I think when we talked about this just before the show, that as long as something good comes out of it, I think that's what the intention was, is that let's just make sure we double check, because we don't want to have situations where drivers get injured. And you know what? As we could have said, it could have happened in the mini stocks. It could have happened in the bone stocks. It just unfortunately happened in the same class twice in the same weekend, and that is really unfortunate. But as we know, and I think we can all attest, racing is not a safe sport. It never has been. It's always dangerous. But let's just hear your opinions on kind of that situation there, Ben.
Yeah, the super stock one, especially at the end of the racing there, was more of a fluke in my opinion. I've only
Yeah.
seen, probably the entire time I've been there, 2 cars hit that wall. Obviously that car came to a dead halt when it hit that wall, and that's somewhere where cars normally don't go. You usually see them pass that wall and into the concrete barrier behind there, which honestly would have been better for him, as maybe would have lost some speed before hitting that wall. But The midget one is more concerning for me, just to the sheer fact that it was 2 accidents that happened in the same class that needed medical attention further from outside hospitals. It's got to be an important off season for that group. They really got to make sure that safety is number one priority. And I was talking to the medical staff at Peterborough Speedway, and they said safety is expensive. We already know that. We
Yep.
know it's not cheap to be safe, but if it means drivers being safer if you hit those hard hits, then it's just got to be a topic of concern for that group.
You know what? I think there's a lot of things that it is a tough question. I mean, we obviously want car counts, we obviously want drivers out there, but when it comes to certain situations like this, I think we all have to look at the safety aspect as life and death potentially of racing, because all it takes is a severe injury or God forbid a fatal incident for racing to get shut down. It is not as safe as people think in the realm of being around for years and years and years. So any situation like this, we don't ignore. And I appreciate those that do make their opinion known that, hey, maybe we need to keep it safe. And I don't agree that we get upset at people for voicing concern. It should be a concern when anybody gets injured. And it happens multiple times. We had a situation with the track last year, 2 years ago. I think it was the same track where somebody was injured and they needed to make changes. And that is what we're doing here, right? We're having a conversation, and that's all that needs to come out of it. If changes are made, great. All we want to make sure at the end of the day is that racers and fans and officials, on-track personnel, that they're safe at the end of the day. And as you mentioned, I think there's a great quote out there about it, that if you have a spot on a racetrack, a race car will hit it.
Yeah.
There's just like there was a wreck when we were at Peterborough earlier this year. I've never seen anybody hit before.
Yeah.
There was a wreck, I believe it was Andrew McFadden in the Legend car, went straight on and hit the barriers at the very end. But again, not something that you would typically see. However, they're racing and they're at speed, and it doesn't matter how you hit, because anytime a car can be spat out in a different direction.
We saw Chris Inglis hit that same wall
exactly.
as well that did.
Yes, exactly. And that in itself, he was fine, but that doesn't mean every wreck and every driver is going to be fine.
Yeah.
And so that's why we definitely have to look at certain things like that. And, as we said, insurance is a really big thing. And that's something that I think a lot of the tracks, they need to care about, and they do. We know that it is important that people get checked out. It's important that everybody is safe at the racetrack. And you know what? We're at the end of the day, we're a family. We care about each other, and we just want to see each other safe. Jason Metcalf goes off, wins the ACC and the championship in the same night. John Baker Jr. happened to do the same thing. I don't know, Ben, if there's a louder fan base than John Baker Jr.'s fans, but they were hollering when he came by, and finally he got that championship knocked down once again in the OMRS. And it's got to be, I got the interview from Clinton. I loved that. John Baker Jr., man, he's a lot of fun, and he sounds like a great rep for that speedway.
His fan base, bright orange, can't miss him in the crowd every night. Burnout was unbelievable. Lane Zardo too. We'll obviously get to Super Stocks later. Great burnouts this season. I loved every part of it. And then the parking spot in Victory Lane was very unique, to which he said as he got out of the car, "This is my victory lane. I'm going to park here how I want," as that's the swagger JBJ brings to the racetrack. We always joke about it too when I go interview him. I'm just a human mic stand by that point. You ask him one question, he'll go off. But what an ambassador for short track racing, and really brings a lot of people into the crowd, and obviously a lot of passionate fans behind him as well.
I just figured out that we actually are now live on Facebook, so we're good. It's one of those things that we're learning here on the fly. This is the first time we've had ONTrack Weekly live with a live guest, and it's actually working. As long as you can hear both Ben and myself nice and clear. I don't know how loud we are. Hopefully loud enough, but Friday night was, it's mostly the qualifier night, Ben, and obviously they did have the feature for the in the championship for OMRS, but Saturday junior late models. We talked about this before, and just 20 friggin' junior late models around Peterborough Speedway is insane on a regular night. But now you're adding in cars from all over the place, and again, another great show for the junior late models. And man, I've said it before. I love this kid. I think he is so talented and a great young racer. And Chase Stevenson getting that big win. He's had a really tough season. He got a huge win at Sunset Speedway for his first. Got his second win in the junior late models out there. But let's talk about these kids out there, man. They put on a great show.
Yeah, absolutely incredible to see 20 of them. Obviously, we bring that number to Peterborough every night, but we have the pros and the juniors. Then at ACC, we probably had 75% of our drivers not attending in the junior late models. So to see 20 come out there was unbelievable. But Peterborough Speedway showed up strong. I mean, Chase Stevenson bringing home the checkered flag. I like to think I'm good luck for him because I went to Sunset for his first win over there, but he is so much fun to watch. A lot of emotion in victory lane too. But you got the Finnegans in there, the Cousineaus, a bunch of Lady of the Oval drivers who are represented in the junior late model division and are getting better and better every night. Their futures are so bright in the sport.
I thought Lila Sigma had one of her best nights I've ever seen. She won both of her heats, and she finished well in the feature. Fantastic feature for her. Morgan Moore out of Sunset Speedway on one of the restarts. She pulled a Savannah Strawn and just went by. I want to say she went by like 10 cars on the restart.
She easily passed 4 rows of cars on that restart. She was all the way up on the wall, 3 wide before they even got to the start finish line. It was fantastic to see.
Now I thought you could just go to the right and pass people as soon as the green flag. Unfortunately, she was a little early, but the captain, Morgan Moore out of Sunset, she had a great one. And can't talk about junior lates without mentioning Josh Davenport, double champion. He was in there, battled on the podium. He got up there. And Keegan Moat ages out of the program at 15 years old. I'm very curious to see where Keegan Moat goes in 2025. We definitely have you had a good amount of Peterborough racers there that were part of it. Avery Kirkpatrick, Graceland McInnes, Lakeland Junkin, Caden Beatty, the Sellers boys. The fact that you guys had that many racers all season long. Brody Coates was obviously there. He was part of it as well. And really good young racers, which is great to see. Obviously, Lucas Finnegan, I think we're going to see a lot from him as well. Didn't have the night that I think he would have expected. They got some pretty big damage in one of the heats, but junior lates, they put on a good show. And I can understand it. It's tough sometimes for people to watch junior lates, but I think that the Bandelero division is going to be hotly contested in 2025. I'm still putting it out there that I want to see Ben Hodgson versus Peyton Milburn. Like legitimately head to head, you two. It needs to happen because now based off of your pace, we had people saying Ben's gonna win this. And I was like, yeah, I thought he could have.
Hey, I thought in the car I had it too until we lost her. But man, even for the junior late models though, they ran so clean, and that's what I was really shocked by. Is that usually when we have the junior late model series, I mean, they're young kids learning, so we have a lot of cautions, we have a lot of spins, and 90% of the race is spent under caution. But here at ACC, with the amount of out of town cars we had, I mean, we only had, I think, 2 or 3 cautions for the main feature. It was unbelievable to see clean racing, 3 wide racing for the checkered flag.
And you know what? I think you had a couple mechanical problems for racers, and that can't really do much about that. And but for the season that those kids have had, and there's a lot of great kids in that division, that they're going to be very successful in the future. And we know that some of them are moving on. They're not going to be in the division next year. We're excited to see where they go. And so them and the Outlaw Midgets, they put their shows on the Saturday. We had some attempts to get the full card in. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get everything in, but first time winner Keaton Pipe in the Ontario Legend Car Series, 15 years old. What a great birthday present for him. Legends were on the card yesterday as well. I love the Legend cars, and they had a full field there yesterday, Ben. And what was it was a little bit rougher of a race, unfortunately, and it wasn't at the front of the field that we saw a lot of that trouble. It was towards the back of the field.
Yeah, we were making a little fun of Keaton Pipe in that non-winners races. He jumped the start pretty bad on one of the restarts, but amazing to see him in victory lane. A long time coming for that young kid. So much talent in those Legend cars. I mean, even though he didn't win in a full race, he was still high up in the points. I mean, he gathers them every time he's out on the racetrack. So to see him find victory lane, regardless of it being a non-winners race, it was seeing the smile on his face and being able to push that food drive and that journey he was on as well was amazing to watch. But heading to that main event for the Legend Car Series, there's nothing better than a full field of Legends. I am fully convinced. Those cars are unbelievable to watch. They never pull away from the pack. I mean, all these cars are so close together. You got the Cuthbertsons. All the Drimmy cars are always in the same field. Mitch Wright is unbelievable. Latimer. I mean, none of these drivers can pull away. They're just all so equal, and it makes for amazing racing around Canada Stuff Star Mount Level.
And you know what? I think it's one of those tracks that I think they run so close together there. They really, like, there was a couple of cars that fell behind, but for the most part, you had a huge pack of like 17 Legends with no separation between them. Yes, some got their passing done, but Jade Franklin coming up and finishing in the 3rd spot. He was earning points for Zach Hatch, who wasn't able to make that championship, for Mitch Wright and for Austin Arnell. Austin Arnell from the Great Lakes Legends and Mitch Wright for the Ontario Legends. I don't know if this is news that's legit or if it's just people breaking balls, but Glenn Morris did post that Andy Camrath potentially was going to the Legends, I assume with his old car. And you know who else posted about potentially looking at a Legend was J.R. Fitzpatrick.
I did see that.
I
talking. Read it and I was like, no way.
Now we're talking. If you're telling me you're going to give me an Ontario Legends deal with J.R. Fitzpatrick and Andy Camrath, are you kidding? Sign me up. Put Sean Chenoweth in there. Put who else? Put Ray Morneau in there. Let's put Brian Cathcart in there. I want to see Brian back up there. Let's get as many friggin' Legends cars out there. Have a 2-speed nationals with like 40 or 50 Legend cars and just bring it down. That would be a ton of fun. But they did a great job. Mostly, like I said, mostly clean at the end of the night. Yeah, we had issues first little bit with Jake Spencer-Walt, but I've also wanted to see Jake and Rick in the Legend car field together. That would be fun. And speaking of Rick, Spencer-Walt and the Oscar Hot Rod feature got it done in Rob Bromley's 31. Tyler Hahn wins the championship, but that wasn't the story, Ben, was it?
I mean, Rick Spencer-Walt dominated that entire race, though, to find that checker flag, but man, it sure wasn't the main story. As controversy would yet again find Dan Archibald at ACC, this time a couple of years later in the same turn, funny enough. Made it 3 wide down the backstretch, contact made. Cam, what was your point of view on it?
You know what? This is funny. We were up in the tower, and there was a lot of back and forth between people in the tower asking, talking about who was this and who was that, and um, you know what? I'm gonna actually chalk it down to. I'm actually gonna say racing. I the more I look at it, the more I can see both points of view, and that I can understand people being upset on one side or the other, but do I think the move should have been made? No. But at the same time, everybody's accountable on that racetrack. I felt bad because the worst guy in that whole deal, the most innocent guy in all of that was Trevor Thompson. He just rebuilt that 00 car after a hard wreck at Delaware, and he got wrecked again. And if there's a guy who people absolutely love, who runs up front, it was Trevor Thompson. And Corey McAllister, Corey's always going to have a little bit of fire, and he was he was ready to do some fighting. He was
He went for it. He almost
I'm
got there.
laughing because all I'm remembering now is his reaction and then Dan's interview.
Oof.
And you know what? I understand that there's always going to be guys that have a following of negativity around them from how they are on the racetrack. I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to speak to the character or how things go, but we know that stuff on the racetrack will always happen. People get wrecked and tempers get hot. It got people talking once again about the hot rods.
And I think it's deserved to have that talk. I mean, anytime Dan Archibald names come into question, it's already some people have an opinion before they even watch the clip or know what happened, and rightfully so. I mean, his past isn't the best when it comes to short track racing, but this one in particular, I think it's very questionable, 50-50. I love to hear what people think about it, but I see it as him going 3 wide out of turn 2. He put everything in that 07 he possibly could to get into that side, and he's not going to back down when he sees that lane open up. He had the tire all the way down the backstretch and just threw it in a little heavier than he usually does. Would he have made the corner? I think so. He would have slid up the track pretty far regardless. But obviously when those wheels touch, got airborne, nothing really Archibald can do by that point. But I think it's any other driver, probably people are a little bit more lenient saying, he forced it, just ran out of room.
Yeah.
But because it's Dan Archibald's name, I think it's a little bit under scrutiny more than it should.
Unfortunately, your history will always come back to play a role in people's opinion of you. And you know what? It wasn't as egregious as I think the move a couple of years ago was, where it looked very intentional. This one to me, it to me looked like Corey was trying to pass the 00 and was focused on that. He wasn't focused on getting past. And unfortunately, when that happens, and when a car gets airborne, we're really kind of screwed after that because there's no controlling it. The 07 was able to continue, but the guy who, like I said, innocent in it was not just Trevor Thompson. It was also the 07, or so the 07, the 2 of Tyler Hahn, the eventual champion, who was in front of it.
He hit the wall pretty good,
and
too.
he clobbered it pretty good.
Yeah.
And still comes away. He gets his 5th Oscar Hot Rod Championship. Tyler Hahn, again, there are some people in the racing deal that I've met and I just go, wow, I love that guy. And Tyler Hahn is one of those guys. The voice, I don't know what it is about him, man. He's a big, rough, tough racer, but the legitimate friendliest guy always says hi, always wants to check in. Heart of gold, man. And I know other racers may have a different opinion, but you have to remember, I am not a racer. I don't race cars. I have opinions just on how I meet people and how they act with me, right? So that's my opinion, right? I absolutely love that car. That Monte Carlo, my God, if I could get a die cast made of that thing, because it is absolutely beautiful. Now he gets the championship, a win for Rick Spencer Walt again at the colors. Amanda Bolson gets a second place finish. A great, great run for her. She was extremely excited. And then, of course, Rob Bromley with that beautiful number 6 coming in third place. Then we got ourselves into the mini stock race. Now they had a non-winners as well that I really feel bad for Ryder White.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had it. I think he was outrunning Phil in that 7 car, and unfortunately, I don't really know what happened. He
He,
just looked to lose it, I think.
yeah, I think what
Oh,
we
sorry.
thought
Thank you,
was Matt
Jordan.
Young. Yeah,
Sorry, it was Bromley in second, and Bolson was in third. Thank you, Jordan.
yeah. For Ryder Wright, he just came out of turn 4. I think he was looking at Phil Givens in the 7. I mean, he was coming up on him, but they were both putting down similar lap times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know, the back end just kicked out weird. Not sure if something broke on the 88 or what happened, but around he went, kept it straight off the wall, which obviously is the most important part in a non-winners race. You don't want to wreck your car up before the show. Kept it in the grass. Huge win, though, for Phil Givens. I mean, fun for him to hop in a mini stock and take a checkered flag, but yeah, you have to feel for Ryder Wright, and then obviously the main show doesn't go his way either.
I mean, Phil Givens. I mean, we'll get to the bone stock in just a second, because we're going to talk mini stocks and we're going to talk bone stocks afterwards, because there's a couple of really really insane saves in the bone stock feature.
Oh,
But the mini stocks we talked about a little bit before, but a couple of people mentioning here that Ryder's improved so much this year. He's had a tough go at Flamborough. Yes, if you mentioned on the broadcast yesterday, they didn't even make the feature because the car was destroyed earlier in the day at Flamborough, unfortunately, and the quick turnaround, they got that car there, and unfortunately, in the lead, was going to win the non-winners race if they didn't really have himself spin out, and then unfortunately just clipped the spun out car
Goodfellow.
of Dustin Goodfellow, and the 288s fought for that spot, and Chris Tubman got it, and Ryder just missed it, but at least they got out there. Good for the kid, and he did a good job making it out in the field. We talked about the mini stock feature already. The contact between Sean Taylor and Doug Butler to end that race. You and I were both in there. That was honestly one of the best races I've ever seen live. The top 3, nay, the top 5 for a good chunk of that race were really close. And there was battles throughout the entire field. What do you want to take away from, or what are your takeaways, I guess, from that mini stock feature? Because there was a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down from that 67 lap race. Obviously, the radio style up in the booth between me, you, and Adam was, man, that gave me chills all night. That was incredible.
Oh, yeah. That was
radio
so much
style.
fun.
But man, the race throughout was cleaner than I thought. Actually, I thought mini stocks may have been a little iffy. Obviously, with 40 cars, tensions were high before racing even got going, knowing that 50% of this field isn't racing in the main show, and you're going home if you don't make the A main. So I thought the heat racing was exactly how we thought. It was very aggressive. But once the main show came around, everyone was just making sure you stay alive. Obviously, the big one was going to happen at some point, and you just got to avoid it. And the big one ended up being just a simple spin in turn 4 that collected a couple cars. Overheating became an issue for some drivers, which for 67 laps for a mini stock will always be an issue. But as tires began to wear, it really wasn't anyone's race other than Taylor's and Butler's. I mean, it was just them two the entire night. They went back and forth. Butler was behind Taylor for probably 50% of that race and finally found his opportunity on the inside lane to get by Taylor. Led all the way up until the white flag, and Taylor just misjudged the first corner.
And you know what? I'm going to get this already, but Charlie Smith, the winner, is in the chat, and he says Ben knows how to pick him. So we're going to rub it in. My guy was going for the win, so and you know what? I put this out there on social media. I've announced 2 mini stock races this year, and Charlie Smith won both of them.
Yeah.
I was up there for when Charlie was we did the non-winners, and I honestly cannot remember what the heck the other race was. It was the ringer. He won the ringer race at Sunset. So we announced that, and then we announced this one, and he won this time as well. I was like,
I've seen Charlie Smith. It was 3 times at Peterborough this season. First time came out on opening night of the 2024 season, obliterated the field, completely shocked everybody there. We're like, who the heck is this guy racing around? And didn't come back. We knew that was his plan. He wasn't obviously going to stick around main at Sunset. Then he came back for another weekend. We're like, ooh, this is going to get interesting. Caught on fire that night. We thought that was going to be it for Charlie Smith at Peterborough Speedway until ACC decided to come back for that 50-lap event. And again, it's the same thing. He can run that outside lane at Peterborough Speedway, got around a lot of cars, gets through lap traffic easy, and he won that race as well. So when it came to ACC, I wasn't making the mistake of not picking him, that's for sure.
And you know what I think was great about it is that all of us in the end, all of our picks did real good. Charlie's unfortunately fell out with Nolan Gould, unfortunately, but we really had such a great time in there. That field was stacked. It was one heck of a amazing show, and you know what? It shows mini stock racing can be fantastic. Personally, let's just put all 40 on the track next year.
I'm all for it.
Let's do all 40. I might be chaos, but I did see, again, Jordan Smith mentioning as well, probably the biggest highlight story was Mike Nelson. That 70 car, for not running for many years, DQ after winning his heat race, goes to the B main, wins the B main, and then he races into the top 5. And honestly, if we had a couple more laps, I would not have been shocked if he had been able to get up there and potentially contend for that win. He was flying the entire race.
Well, on one of the restarts, he was going to start on the inside of row number 2 until the lineup obviously was corrected, and he was on the outside of row number 2, which is not a place you want to be at Peterborough Speedway. But we actually didn't really cover him that much during the race because he was at the back. He was involved in an early crash, and we were like, he had damage on that back end. It didn't look horrible, but we knew it was obviously going to affect the car, so we didn't really touch much on him once that happened. And obviously the front 5 were so close together. We kind of put all of our focus towards that for the entire race until we had that caution with 1 to go. And we were like, oh my gosh, Mike Nelson has a chance at this thing. I mean, an incredible weekend for him. A lot of up and downs, getting DQ'd in heat. He said on one of his interviews, it was completely his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt like he owed his team a win in that B main to move on to the A main. He did just that, had a great running in the A main. I mean, obviously the wreck was not on his plan to do, but when you start at the back of the pack in a 28 car field, I mean, you got to expect it at some point. But he battled back. His crew was amazing all night long, and he cracked the top 5.
I think one of the things that we're hoping for, and I mean, one of the mini stock deals that I'm hoping for is that we get this momentum continuing into 2025. I think a lot of people are seeing mini stock racing is great, but so is the bone stocks, and the bone stock feature, man. I figured we would see a Phil Givens and Joe Lawrence show, and we did. But once again, kind of the same trend that we saw in a lot of the other races, which was somebody was leading for most of it, and then they didn't end up winning the race. Phil Givens just had, I don't know if he burned up the stuff or not, but he said he could have fought it, but it's Joe, and he's not gonna He's not going to do something stupid with Joe, and they're good pals. And Phil has driven for BT Racing. He'd been buddies with them for a long time, and Phil Givens knows that track like the back of his hand. And Joe Lawrence, they weren't even sure he was going to make that trip. They went. I think he said in the interview Thursday night they made that decision to be there, and I'm going to give a call to a bunch of the drivers in there. Cam Thompson was 3/4 of the way spun out after contact with Zach Chang, and he saved the hell out of that car. Tegan Stanley was 3/4 of the way sideways, and he saved his car. I don't know what it was, but people just saved the heck out of their race cars the entire night, and for whatever reason, the Bone Stock guys were able to do it a lot easier.
It was a interesting Bone Stock race, something we didn't really expect. We knew there was going to be a lot of contact throughout the field. A lot of inexperience made it to the main show, and talked to Tegan Stanley before the race. He said, I'm not going to be waiting around. I'm starting at the back of the pack. I know these guys up front are way quicker than I am, so I'm just going to use my bumper to get through the field. He tried to do it. I mean, when cars are 3 wide in front of you, you can't really make moves to begin with, trying to getting through that field. But he was sideways a couple times. Our front runners were sideways. Joe Lawrence, he got a little loose trying to get through traffic as well. But you usually see a pilot with the Bone Stock division. That's usually what fans watch Bone Stocks for, is for those huge wrecks. But I think we're just seeing the Bone Stocks become more competitive, more experienced. And these drivers are they're getting better and better every year, and these crashes aren't becoming reality.
It's one of the things that we've talked about before. Having Bone Stock racing is a great thing, because you will always have those young guys coming in that have never raced before. They're now learning from the best of the best. Having Joe Lawrence in there, having Phil Givens, Calvin Reeser, having the names being in that division to learn from. Guys like Spencer Riddell, Cam Thompson, Alex Stewart, Brady Cox are all a part of that division. But Jordan Wilms in that 22F had to come from the B main as well, and flew up into, I believe he finished 4th at the overall finish. I'm going to give a call once again to Austin Janet, first time ever at the ACC in that number 9 for SKLD Motorsports. Again, I bring this up because when you talk about resilience and you talk about people that are inspiring, that team this year lost their primary motor in his mini stock the first practice for the first race of the 2024 season. And not only that, his teammate Doug Willman's car they had issues with all season. Carly Willman's car they had issues with all season. He gets into this Bone Stock deal, and at the end of the season he got his first career win. There was a DQ in that race, mind you, so it didn't count. However, did win the non-winners race, and then comes to the ACC, and he's battling Spencer Riddell for a podium position. First time ever at the racetrack. Comes away with the 6th place because he just got beat by Craig Cole right at the line. But I want to say that type of resilience it's amazing to see.
Yeah, and just seeing those new drivers come to Peterborough. I mean, when we were registering all these cars on Thursday night and Friday, the amount of names I had to enter into our system because they've never been at Peterborough before was incredible. And that's why we saw our car count so high this year. But it's drivers like those that you hope, not even just with their good run, but you just hope they come back to Peterborough Speedway and have that itch to try to win this race. Is when you come, you realize how difficult it is to race at Canada's toughest 3-mile oval and how good the competition is. I mean, it's just so hard to win here. So having those drivers out of town put up those great performances, heck, even cracking the top 10 is a feat in its own.
I mean, I also want to give a call because he started at the back as well. Calvin Reeser, a hometown favorite from Sunset Speedway, that 49 Pops Cannabis car, he came up, he flew through the field as well. And I mean, I loved that. And Nicole Givens, funny enough, Nicole Givens, who Phil finished in second place, almost won the race. She says, I think we should have had an invert. I would have loved to watch Phil and Joe battle through traffic.
I
Uh,
agree.
I want to
100%.
see. There was a couple years ago. There was I want to say it was an award during COVID at Flamborough that and I think Rodney, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was Rodney Rutherford potentially, took up the offer, was start at the back, and if you can win from the back of the field, you get like an extra like $500 or something. Maybe next year, because if you all of a sudden stick that, the one thing I was actually hoping for, as well as we didn't actually end up starting the full 28 for the mini stocks because Ryan Edwards Kiss wasn't able to make the start. Would have loved if they could have shoved whoever was the first, I guess, not to make the race, shove them in there and see if they could have raced it. But man, 2 races, bone stocks. Again, you said we were expecting a bunch of chaos. We really didn't get that for them, which is great.
Yeah.
Chris Lawrence and BT Racing, if I'm not mistaken, 274 races or starts this season with that team. 18 wins, I believe this made it. They are the king. Was it 26th to 7th?
Wow.
Pure Chaos. That was for Calvin Reeser. And he will have the footage on his YouTube channel, so make sure you guys check that out. I believe Spencer Riddell also posts the footage on his channel as well. Super Stocks, it was an emotional one for Lane Zardo, the Cowboy, the Thrillbilly.
I like
enough.
the Cowboy. That works.
That's Dan Price's. I can't take that away from Dan Price.
Yeah.
But and Chris Lawrence actually. Billy had talked to me before the start of the night, and he had said how much Autumn Colors means to them and means to their family, and not just family, but especially their grandfather, who obviously we lost a couple years ago, and he loved that place. And Lane Zardo has had a tough couple of weeks with getting into drivers, and he's had a lot of people upset. But to see him win that, it was definitely an emotional win.
Yeah, we saw a lot of drivers emotional in victory lane this season. Obviously, Charlie Smith being one of those who just felt like he had no deal winning that race, and that opportunity just opened up for him. Where Lane Zardo was kind of the opposite. It was just years and years of frustration at ACC that just boiled over once he finally got to park it in victory lane. I will say one of the coolest burnouts I've ever seen at Kansas Tubs Thermal level, hanging out of the car. Maybe not the best from the track point of view, but
safety-wise, maybe not.
But he just talked about the frustration, how many wrecks he got in at ACC, ended up sideways on the wall, taking out one of our caution lights a number of years ago. It's just that pent-up frustration of never winning and finally being able to do it in that 36 machine. Talks about how iconic that car is at Kansas Tubs Thermal. I mean, he hasn't changed that paint scheme in a long time. I know as a kid that paint scheme is resembles with me. I grew up watching that car. Maybe not win races, but it was always competitive. So to see him finally pick up a leaf in that crown, you could see just how much it means to him.
And Kenny Grube put Lane in that 36 car. It's not their family number, but it's become Lane's number the last couple of years, and he's had a pretty tough year. I mean, he's used to winning races, and he hasn't unfortunately had as many. The changes that the racing scene goes through is always going to happen, and we definitely can't touch the super stocks without saying that we had a good amount of representation, and we know Donovan Price would have been out there. Unfortunately, a motor issue took him out, but representation once again from Peterborough Speedway out there. Marley Owen did have some mechanical issues with the car after some contact, but on tracks action. Sean Chenoweth, I don't know if there was a guy this year who was better in a super stock than Sean Chenoweth. Carson Nagy last year for sure, but Sean Chenoweth won. Jeez, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say 6 times potentially. I want to say he won like 6 features at Sunset Speedway across different divisions. this year. I probably may mix that up because I think it was a 6 including Frosttoberfest. And if things had gone maybe a little bit different in this one, he very well could have walked away with another ACC crown as well. And the car, I don't know, Ben, that is probably my favorite. It was one of the best looking super stocks. The Stewart's equipment, orange, white, black, beautiful looking ride. The super stock feature though, I think for the most part there's just one downside, and we really hope Johnny Morrison's doing okay, and nobody ever wants to see that. And Ben, we're at the last feature, and we're at the mods, and I don't know. I know TJ Edwards has been kicking ass in this division this year. He's a double champion officially now. But I think Wally Wilson had the crowd's heart once again after he picked up his first ever win ever at in the division at Peterborough Speedway earlier this year, man. And you would have been there for that, I imagine. Talk about that emotion for him.
Yeah, watching him do so well at ACC, winning his first race at Peterborough Speedway, I mean, that was the most excited I've seen a driver in victory lane in a long time for sure. Not only him, but his family as well was just over the moon. I could tell the celebration and just the sense of relief of finally finding victory lane was so big for them. At his favorite track, you mentioned before that ACC meant a lot to him, and getting a top 3 and finally getting a leaf at ACC in such a tough division was so impressive to see, and what a future that guy has for in front of him.
Wally is just, it's a name I think that everybody just knows. I don't know how, but everybody that's in the Ontario racing scene knows Wally Wilson and is a fan. He's definitely done an amazing job this year. Rick Spencer Walt, a win in the hot rod, second place in the mod, and TJ Edwards. It sounds as if he's heading out of the mods and going to something else, but to wrap it up with a double championship, a champion in Sunset mods and a champion in the Oscar mods, fantastic career in the modified division for TJ. This is a division that potentially could see a lot of change for next year in terms of new names coming in, names leaving. Hopefully we get to see that. Hopefully we get to see a couple more names coming into the division and just freshen it up. And I want to see more mods, man. I love the mods. One of my favorite divisions, Ben. And let's talk about some highlights for yourself. What are some things that you thought of that you just absolutely loved this entire ACC weekend?
Man, first off, the fans were absolutely incredible. Friday wasn't an incredible turnout for fans, but it's cold just to watch a couple of heats. But the fan turnout this weekend was unreal. A lot of people showed up. Car count, obviously, like we talked about earlier, was just so refreshing to see as someone who's trying to grow the sport as much as possible. Seeing those car counts and really knowing that these cars are out like racing at these tracks. We just need to get them out to more tracks and get these guys to travel around to bring these huge shows to every track around Ontario. I think a lot of us can all agree that pushing for a same rules package for certain divisions will be a topic of conversation during the offseason. I know a couple tracks are kind of thinking about that idea, but I know Chris Allard was talking about that on our podcast, that, you know, that's something that he believes it will benefit the bone stocks, is allowing all of them to travel as well. But man, the competition is just unreal, and how tight these races are getting. That photo finish at the line on Friday, I mean, it just shows how important these points are in the heats just to get to the A main. And then the A main's even more competitive. We didn't have one driver that clearly ran away with the race and had no opportunity, like no other driver had any other opportunity of winning. I mean, it was a 3-car battle for every single checkered flag. It was incredible. You could not predict who was going to win, that's for sure. And it was such a special year, and I can't wait for the next season.
And you know what? Let's make it bigger for next year. We know that with the presence of people on social media, the presence of shows like this, presence of G-Force TV, of putting the product out there, people like Paddle Power, people like Straw & Co. 77, local to, of course, Peterborough Speedway. Only Fours pushing the Bone Stock division, podcasts like Jomo Media, the Feeney Call, stickers and scuffs. Yourself, Ben, for posting all of your updates through social media about your stuff in the booth. I mean, this is what Ontario racing needs. We need people to get out there to get support. We need racers, we need competitors, we need fans, but especially we need partners. We need people to come in and be a part of this amazing thing called motorsports. And you know what? We've had a good crowd of people in the show tonight that we're really excited to. We're really excited to have you on, Ben, and that the tech gods worked with us. I think my highlights for this week, that mini stock race, obviously getting to announce for anybody that knows me, that was my childhood dream. I've done a couple of announcing and it all started at Peterborough Speedway with Brandon Feeney legitimately pushing me into Charlie Toner to make sure that happened, and Brad Laval and Peyton and Dave Sigma earlier this year. And then you and we were just talking about, hey, let's do something, and we did, and I think it turned out really well. We had some pretty good chemistry, and I think we'll have to do that again, because that was
For sure.
that was a lot of fun. And what I want people to go out there and support Ben on his continuing journey of posting stuff on social media. He's got a pretty good Instagram where he posts a lot of stuff. I think you're on TikTok as well, right?
Yeah, TikTok, I just started up. Just posting kind of the same clips there on Instagram, but this year has been such a chaotic year for me, as I posted one of these videos as let's just test it. Let's see how it goes. It was received very well, and I was super shocked on how welcoming the racing community was to this kind of new concept. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go for the rest of the year and see what happens. And these videos just kicked off. I mean, at the racetrack, a lot of more people, they knew of me, but they didn't know exactly what I did. And now I'm more clear in the racing community now, and I'm starting to build a following. We just hit 500 followers on Instagram tonight. So a little bit of a celebration for me there, but posting as much as I can to build this community. I want to inspire people to be announcers as well, because it is such a thrill to call one of the biggest events of the year, and having your voice behind a clip that could potentially get a lot of views and go viral for, these amazing competitors. It's unreal to see. We see a lot of young talent announcing at Sunset too. I just can't wait to see the future, not only of racing, but where the announcing part goes, where the social media part goes. This is what's going to build our racing community even stronger. A lot of the drivers said they saw our track through G-Force for the first time, and that's why they were here. So having G-Force there for the weekends, an incredible team, absolutely unreal. Clinton with all the insight from inside the pit road there, it was unbelievable. Jack for filming, every guy on the camera crew, Spencer for his wizardry, for getting technology to work.
Yep.
Just doing things that no other track has ever done is the only thing that's going to build our community even stronger, and there'll be big changes coming next season.
We definitely can see it. We know that the momentum is there. We're going to keep the momentum all off season, of course. ONTrack Weekly does not stop. We are always going to keep going this off season, because conversation cannot stop if we want motorsport to continue to succeed in the province and in of course the country of Canada. So Ben, you know what? It is off season, so I know you're making the switch, I assume, to hockey this year. So
Yeah.
Who's the early prediction for who's hosting Lord Stanley at the end of the season?
Stanley Cup, man.
Please don't say the Leafs. Don't be a
I'm
delusional.
definitely not.
Please don't be a
gonna say
delusional
that.
fan.
No, I am definitely not that. Man, kind of put me on the spot here. I'm going to go with the Rangers. I love what they're doing down there. But yeah, hockey is a huge part of my life for the off season. Obviously, racing is going to be bigger than it ever was for my off season, as I have a lot to plan out for next year and talk with Peterborough Speedway on how I'm going to approach social media next year and what I can do further to build that following. But I'm also with the Austria Generals all season long. Not looking too hot right now, but hopefully we can get that team back on track and hopefully go for a Memorial Cup.
You know what? That would be a pretty damn good way to end the season there. We're gonna wrap it up for ONTrack Weekly tonight, but I want to thank Ben Hodgson. I want to thank each and every one of you guys that have tuned in tonight on Thanksgiving. So we give thanks obviously for a lot of stuff. As I, of course, because I'm on camera, I have to sneeze at least once.
You almost went the whole show.
People that know I can never do it as Chris Tubman says, boo, Pete's go. I don't know, buddy. I don't have a dog in this fight, unfortunately. There's no Scarborough Steelers or I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know what our mascot would be. Legitimately.
Yeah, well, Pete's aren't having it. I know I'm not going to make a lot of friends here, but I don't think they've won a game yet this season. So,
well, you guys will get there. Thank you for watching ONTrack Weekly with us here on G-Force TV. Make sure you tune in. Of course, this weekend, Autumn Colors Classic is live on a tape delay.
yeah.
Okay, you got that? So we're going to have tape delay. The full weekend, okay, is going to be on G-Force TV. Not Racing America, G-Force TV, okay? So you're going to have your regular start times. Now, let me pull out my old trusty phone here because the Guelph Storm is what we're seeing here from Nicole Gibbons. Am I right? That is Guelph Storm, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. I don't want to sound like an idiot here.
No, you got it. I got London Knights in the chat.
Yeah, I know we got London Knights, of course. Always got the London Knights.
Last year was rough for us. That hurt.
Yeah, well. All right, so Friday at 6 o'clock, you're going to get your G-Force broadcast from this past Friday. And then, of course, just like the race times were, 3 o'clock on Saturday, you'll get your 3 o'clock show from Saturday this past weekend. And then, of course, 12:30 on Sunday is your full feature rundown live on G-Force TV on a tape delay. Okay, so yes, while it's already happened, it's going to be airing on G-Force TV, not Racing America. It's already on there. If you haven't watched it already, if you have a Racing America subscription, you can go back and watch the entire thing. Go Knights, go. What is it? London? Ugh.
Yeah.
You guys have won enough.
I know. I'm on the same boat, Cam.
If there was going to be a team, I hate to say it, guys, I'm originally from Pickering, so I would probably have to go with the Oshawa Generals. So, just alienate us both there, buddy, eh? Because I'm not brave enough to say Leafs personally for like the Stanley Cup, and we don't have anything here in Scarborough. So Barrie Colts, okay, we got a Barrie fan. There we go. We'll take that. We'll take that. But Ben, thank you so much, buddy, for coming on once again, and we'll have you on more than likely during this off season because it is a long one. And we can't wait. We can't wait for Motorama because that's when we get repping back up, ready for the 2025 racing season. Make sure you guys tune in G-Force TV this weekend for the ACC coverage, and of course tomorrow, Race Rivals Race Chat with Adam Ross and Clinton Jeffrey and the entire team. Hope you guys all have an amazing Thanksgiving with your family. Take care. Have yourselves a great night, everybody, and we'll catch you all next week.